Do business, act business. Business
Sustainable development is here to stay. Businesses that want to distinguish themselves in their own fields must begin to understand how important the adoption of the tenets and principles of sustainable development will help them not just remain profitable, but certainly environmentally responsible. Welcome to Business Matters, where business truly matters. My name is Stephen Ipalbo Lawson. Environmental management systems are here to enable us to be responsible and responsive to environmental issues during our business operations. Let us have a business update.
Hey beautiful, your eyes, your smile are all begging me to take you home tonight. Now reading page 3. Experience unlimited superfast internet access from Intel 4G.
Intel. Live more.
Small and medium enterprises are not exempted from adopting business processes and ideas that can help them to be very relevant and profitable at the same time. We must recognize the fact that being a responsible business owner or a business entity benefits not just you, but the environment within which you operate. Let us have our professional segment. Joining us at our professional segment is no other person than a wonderful, wonderful professional who holds a master's and doctorate degree in environmental technology and management and has a very particular interest in efficient resource use, environmental policy, management system development, climate financing, and development impact measurement, as well as reporting. She has over 20 years experience having worked in different organizations, especially with projects in natural resources, power tech, telecommunications, financial services sectors, definitely just to mention a few. She's actually had several roles in different organizations that focused on private equity, project finance, management, as well as finance, as the case is. And joining us in exploring the topic, the increasing relevance of sustainability to the local and global finance industry, is no other person than Dr. Omawumi Kola Lawal. You're welcome, Omawumi.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Thank you. Great to be on the program.
Great. Now, this topic is one some of us are very, very excited about. But as a way of just kicking off the ball, we'd like to ask exactly what sustainability is all about and what is its relevance to finance.
Great opening question. For nearly 30 years now, since the 1980s, we've been talking about the term sustainable development and sustainability. Now, there is a formal definition for sustainable development, which is that it is development that attempts to meet the needs of the present while not compromising on the ability of future generations to meet their own needs, that reduces those resources such that future generations have no access to sufficient resources that they will need as well. So that's the definition of sustainable development. And in terms of what it means and its relevance to finance locally and globally, the finance industry finances and basically is a facilitator of development. So they are a very important driver of whether development happens and how sustainable it can be.
So what are those drivers of sustainability? Because you just mentioned the fact that, I mean, the word drivers just basically just jumped at me. And when we wonder what exactly, are there one or are there several in this regard?
Stephen, there are several. So society is becoming more averse to a situation in which Earth's resources are being depleted. And we see examples nowadays where there's so many things that used to be available decades ago that have become scarce resources today. There are plants and animals that were in abundance decades ago or centuries ago that have become extinct now. So one of the drivers is a risk-averse society, a society that is increasingly becoming intolerant of development that continues to move at a pace that does not take the future into consideration. Another driver really is finance, is development finance. You have an increasing amount of resources across the world that only wants to finance development that can prove that it is sustainable. So that's an important driver for the rest of the finance world. Another important driver is really civil society and NGOs. You find that you have a lot of international and local NGOs, environmental NGOs, who are very concerned about environmental problems and who are putting increasing pressure on governments, on corporates, on private companies rather, to develop in such a way that is sustainable and to take into consideration the fact that we can't continue to develop at a rate that only takes economic profit into consideration. One last but not the least driver is really the youth, the younger generation. Increasingly, we're finding that younger people are a lot more conscious about sustainable development, environmental management, social risk management, and about us developing in a way that takes the environment and society into consideration.
Yeah, it's interesting you actually mentioned all of this, in particular when you mentioned the youth. I will know that job creations are definitely in the forefront of government policies. But a lot of businesses themselves do not seem to have subscribed to the tenets of sustainability because they believe business as usual certainly is still guaranteeing them the profit that they need to be able to still remain in business. Are you now saying to us that in the next few years, people who obviously will still conduct business as usual will obviously have depleted profit or perhaps be out of business?
Oh, Stephen, I can assure you that it's no longer business as usual. I've been an environmental professional for over 20 years. 20 years ago, you were going around almost cap in hand asking people to build environmental management systems, to consider the ways in which their business affected the environment and to try to control those impacts. But now, you find that the companies are approaching you. You find that companies are finding that they're increasingly being asked for their strategic approach to environmental issues. They're increasingly being asked to go and proactively recognize the impacts that they have on the environment and on society. They're increasingly being asked to get a social license to operate. So I think globally and also regionally and locally, companies are beginning to realize that it can't be business as usual anymore, that your development has to be tripartite. Your development has to take into consideration, yes, of course, economic profit, because you are there to make a profit, but it must take into consideration the environmental aspects of your business, making sure that you don't negatively impact the environment and you don't leave it in a worse state than you found it. And also, you must take into consideration society and community.
That's interesting to know because, I mean, you're a sustainable professional who's worked in one of the world's leading development finance institute, and you've been involved in different projects, several projects across 25 African countries. In your experience, do you see projects that actually have come to stay, projects who actually have adopted the principles of sustainable development, especially in Africa?
Oh, and the answer, Stephen, is a big yes. A big yes. I mean, like you rightly said, I've worked in private equity, I've worked in development finance. Now, when you have projects that are looking for finance, the financier is a key factor in determining the behavior of the project. So when the financier comes to appraise a project and brings in international standards, for instance, if a financier insists that you need to have minimum in environmental and social standards. So for instance, we would insist that you need to understand what your environmental issues are, and you need to have plans in place to make sure that you either have a no net negative impact on the environment, or you actually have a positive impact on the environment, or else the finance will not be dispersed. And that is a huge driver, a very huge driver that shapes the way that infrastructure projects across Africa would operate. And I've seen it happen so many times, scores of times. I've worked in nearly 30 African countries, and I've seen the way international financiers like us actually change the behaviors. We've made projects have to take a step back, conduct the studies that they need to conduct to control their environmental impact. We've made them consider how they can go and obtain a social license, and we've made them hire teams of staff to work with them and specialists to actually drive that objective forward. And we've generally made them better projects because they know that if they don't meet those conditions, then they will not be in most cases receiving the finance.
Now, one of the things that I want to ask is the question of ombudsman. I mean, a lot of people oftentimes will believe that self-regulation is a reflection of visionary enterprises. And if you have financial players in this country who are better self-regulated, perhaps issues of so many of the kinds of scandals that you read off from the pages of the newspapers will not basically be what we perhaps might be exposed to. So do you see that sustainability is more of a thing of self-regulation or self-adoption, or should it be something that has to come from the top down in terms of government policy, insisting that every single entity operating in the financial sector definitely must adopt the principles of sustainable development?
Stephen, I think that's an excellent question. What you find with issues of sustainability and environmental and social risk management is that there always has to be a baseline, a threshold. So they usually will start with the regulator placing some basic standards or having a best practice guideline. And that's usually where it starts from. But in no way, shape or form can sustainability remain there. Each company, each financial institution has to be able to move beyond just the regulatory baseline on which sustainability practice starts, and needs to be able to get to the place where they begin to actually take responsibility and they self-regulate. So I think it's a combination of both, where you definitely need a basic minimum standard. So if you look at the financial industry in Nigeria, yes, of course, you need the regulators to be able to define basic standards, but you also need a situation where each organization, each financial institution basically catches the fever and is able to move, depending on its own profile of customers, is able to go beyond compliance. That's when you actually begin to have true sustainability practice.
I mean, Omawumi, this has been most very interactive and engaging section for me. But I will not go and let you go without asking the fact that there are certain things that comes to light. But before I ask you that question, we're going to go on a short break. When we return, Business Matters continues.
Experience unlimited super-fast internet access from Intel 4G.
Intel. Live more.
All right, thank you. If you've just joining us, this is Business Matters, and we've been having a conversation with Dr. Omawumi Kola Lawal, a sustainability professional with over 20 years experience, discussing the topic increasing relevance of sustainability to the local and global finance industry. I mean, Dr. Omawumi, one of the things that I'm very much particular because I've been involved in one way or the other with climate change issues, climate financing issues. We know that sustainable development, sustainability are all buzzwords that interlink in this particular context. However, are we saying that sustainability can actually not even ripple down to other sectors like the telecoms industry, like the transportation industry, or is this obviously with the finance industry taking the lead?
Also, in no way, shape, or form. I mean, sustainability is something that applies to everyone. It's something we can even bring home into our houses. And the reason we're having this discussion on this program about the finance industry is because the finance industry, in this sense, in a way, is almost like a thumb that touches all the four fingers. So the finance industry is a driver of, as you mentioned, the telecoms industry, of the oil and gas industry, of practically every industry, because they actually facilitate the growth of those industries with finance. So sustainability is definitely something for all industries. It's something that can be driven by all industries. And it's also something that, if we take telecoms, for instance, that, as I mentioned before, every company can begin to move beyond compliance, take responsibility, recognize the all the different sub-companies that are within its ecosystem, like the oil and gas industry has done, and influence, in a secondary and tertiary manner, the practices of those, and the behavior and the thinking in terms of sustainability of that ecosystem. So everybody, it's almost like at different levels we begin to affect the way that we operate and the way that we think, so that we can achieve this common objective of saving the earth.
I know your experience has been quite vast. I mean, you've been involved in different projects with different sectors across different countries. One of the things we are very passionate about on Business Matters is the SME segment of the economy, because we strongly believe that the SME, if it's well funded and it gets its operations right, it can leapfrog the development and advancement of the economy. In your own professional experience or view, how do you see the SMEs themselves benefiting from implementing principles of sustainability?
I think that you are correct. It's easy when one is focusing on large development to potentially overlook the SME industry, but it's a driver of our economy, by far the largest sector of the economy. And one of the things that I see as a practitioner is the need for support, for additional support mechanisms for SMEs in terms of training, in terms of just the capacity that they require. A lot of SMEs are not able to hire, for instance, internal staff to help them with environmental or social risk management, or with health and safety management. So there needs to be a lot more support available for SMEs, so that they also are able to recognize what their environmental impacts are and try to control it. Now, imagine that a lot of SMEs are able to do that. We will have a multiplier effect in this really, really large and pivotal sphere of the economy.
That's impressive, and that actually drives home the point that regardless of what the cost is, the benefits obviously will always outweigh the costs. One of the things that I'm always very much passionate about, especially when it has to do with sustainable development, is the professionals like yourself who are out there ensuring that companies and professionals are able to adopt a lot of this mindset, this training, and this capacity. Would you say that there are enough professionals like yourself to actually help to train and then retrain to ensure that organizations definitely adopt the whole idea of sustainability to drive their own profitability as well as impact the environment?
I mean, I don't have an exact count of if we're looking at Nigeria, of the exact count of the number of health, safety, occupational safety, environmental management, social risk management, and professionals that are out there. But I do think that in 20 years, the number has increased within the corporation that they're working in, but goes out and actually seeks to spread the sustainability message. I think we will have a much more tangible impact in society. Because one of the interesting things about being a sustainability professional is that it's not really something that you can keep to yourself. It's a message because we're all in a world and there's time seriously ticking regarding a lot of the environmental issues we face. It's a message that one constantly has to be passing across, even when one is working for one's organization. It's a message that you can pass across in your house, the way that resources are used in a home, the way that resources are used in society. There's so many opportunities for you to engage even when you're not at work. So I encourage sustainability professionals to realize that it's an important job that we have. Sustainability is a global issue today. It's not one particular country's issue. We're living in a world where each of us can clearly say that the climate and the weather, for instance, has changed in the past 2 to 3 decades. So we can see that the cause that we have been given to carry is a very, very important and relevant one.
Oh, this is quite amazing because, it's a task not just only for the professionals, but every single one of us. And I know you're an avid writer and an author. You've published several books on children, especially when it has to do with environmental. Is this part of a way of giving back to society?
Oh, definitely. I hope it is. I hope it is. In my years as a consultant, one of the things that was, I found quite interesting was the fact that children are so receptive to information. And of course, that if you want to be able to change behavior, you need to do it as early as possible. So I have a range of books on environmental and social risk management, mostly targeted at children, but interestingly, which are always very well received by adults, which are attempting to, it's an attempt to try to change and shape the way that people look at our environment and the way people look at occupational health and safety practice and the way people look at culture and social issues. And it's been very rewarding in the past 7 to 8 years, the way that the books have been received.
Oh, that's great. I know that those children will grow up understanding where their roles are, especially as very responsible members of the society. As a way of wrapping up, Dr. Omawumi, sustainability certainly is the way to go. Yes?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Sustainability is the global, local, and regional watchword of our generation.
All right. On that note, I want to say a big thank you so very much for being with us on Business Matters. This has been a very enlightening and very illuminating session. As a matter of fact, Business Matters has always adopted principles of sustainability. I guess that is why we are as efficient and effective as we are. But it was good to have you on this, and we hope perhaps some other time when we have need to, we'll make a call to you, and then you will oblige us your presence, ma'am.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me on the program, Stephen.
Thank you so very much. Well, viewers, we've been having a conversation with Dr. Omawumi Kola Lawal, a sustainability professional. We'll be speaking on the topic, the increasing relevance of sustainability to the local and global finance industry. We want to say a big thank you. Please stay tuned. Business Matters continues.
Business Matters. Let's talk business. Business Matters.
The social license any organization has is an indicator of the fact that they have chosen to be responsible and have taken the path of self-regulation to ensure their businesses definitely aligns with global best practices. Sustainable development definitely is here with us and is not going anywhere, just like digitization is here with us. Any organization that wants to differentiate itself must definitely go the sustainable way. This is so much we can bring to you on our program this week. Please follow us on all our different social media handles and reach us with any ideas or comments that you may have. My name is Stephen Ipadbo Lawson. Until I come your way again, bye-bye for now.